What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ignite, your space for real stories and real conversations.
We're your hosts, Reagan and Preston.
And today, our conversation is trying to balance identity, purpose, and faith. Have you ever struggled answering the question, who are you? We're going to dive deep into this conversation through the topic of wellness.
Our society today has many wellness trends, such as Pilates, meditation, or even bodybuilding. Preston, do you have an active routine?
Yeah, I do. I actually play pickleball, and I've just recently started taking a tennis class, so I really enjoy doing those two things. Just racket sports in general. How about you?
I like prioritizing sports that I can just have fun with my friends, so like racquetball, badminton, pickleball, and beach volleyball.
That's awesome. I think I remember facing your team in a pickleball tournament.
Yes, we did. We played you guys in the finals, and we had to beat you guys twice.
That's really cool. We don't need to talk about the results though, because we won. Staying active and keeping good health really affects our personality. Today we want to take it to the next level and learn how to truly take care of our body and mind, which ultimately leads to us taking care of our spirit.
Our guest for this episode is Seth Hill. He's an athlete, a podcaster, and an entrepreneur who chased success through performance and wellness, but found true identity through a transformational encounter with Jesus.
He has an amazing story of how certain events can fuel the differences you make in the future, and how your passions can be a motivating force in following through with your dreams.
So stay with us as we unpack how Seth discovered who he is through mission work, exercise, and ultimately through surrender.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us. This is Seth Hill. He is a triathlete and a podcaster. Do you want to plug your podcast and tell us a little bit what it's about?
Yeah, so it's called Stupid Questions with Seth Hill. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because I don't really try to ask a lot of stupid questions, but it's meant to kind of disarm the guest, because when I come in, I usually hit them with a pretty heavy question, which is like, who is that person? So who is Preston would be the question that I would ask you. But yeah, it just aims at having on professional athletes, people who are involved in entrepreneurship and musicians, and really trying to get to the who is or why they do what they do behind their actual profession.
While we're having this interview, we actually have one of our other hosts, Reagan Blake. She is doing a competition with two students who can burn the most calories, whether through biking or running, in 30 minutes. So they have their polo straps on and they're running and biking, and at the end of the episode, we're gonna have you guess which one is which and see if you can decide. Who is Seth Hill?
Yeah. So it's funny you asked that, because I've had a few guests now turn the question back on me. Of 183 episodes, I think, 2 or 3 have done that. And so, yeah, it's a really good question. It's a long answer, so I don't know how much time we have.
Just spill it to us.
Yeah. So Seth is a person who enjoys really deep communication and conversation, usually one-on-one. So when I was in college, had the opportunity to start my own small business, and through that experience there was just kind of this atmosphere of a lot of people willing to invest their time into me. I think because I was a little bit of a younger person, really ambitious, maybe they saw a little bit of something in me. They were willing to sit down with me. A lot of people from Chattanooga, Southern Adventist University, who had more experience in the fields of business, just at large, because that's what I was looking to invest a lot of my time and energy into. And as I started to sit down with these people one-on-one, I realized that what I really wanted to know mostly was just who that person was as an individual. That way I could figure out, well, if I can understand who they are, why they do what they do, then I can kind of siphon through and filter out what makes them a person that I should or should not trust. And so I really started to enjoy that. And as I started that small business, a lot of my identity became wrapped around this like one thing, because it's the first thing in my life that I had created externally that people showed a lot of interest in. And it was the first time that I felt kind of popular.
Okay.
And as people started to really gravitate around that, and as my mind started to expand and wanted to maybe even try other areas of work and focus, I really struggled on figuring out, well, if I end this, business, this insulated hammock business that I called Sway, I felt like I was almost ending me a little bit. And people really knew me around this painted box of, oh, he does the insulated hammocks and he's an entrepreneur. And I kind of wanted to try some other things. So as I started to graduate through life and then graduate through Southern, the misfortune of COVID ended up having to shut that business down. Couldn't go to China to do manufacturing anymore. Although people were really interested in outdoor gear, but I just couldn't have everything made, and it all fell apart. But it really forced me to start to ask that question, like, well, who is Seth? And I realized that for me, a lot of the values that I held, there was a big emphasis around this company where I would use this tagline called like comfort, security, and warmth. That was kind of the basis for this hammock company.
Yeah.
And really what those were values and things that I held dear internally. So like the comfort of life, a lot of people being able to be willing to be there to help me feel comforted through a hard time, a good time, whatever. The security of knowing that I had friends and family that were willing to invest their time and energies into me, like the one-on-one business conversations that I would have. And just the warmth, I think, of friendship and community as well. I realized that a lot of those values and the things circling those areas of life are what I was putting into the company, and I began to pull apart and understanding that, oh, I can take these values and I can move them into something more that can be any business. Yeah. So when you ask who is Seth, I really put a lot of value and stock on that, like creating an atmosphere with one-on-one conversation, larger groups too, but really the one-on-one conversation, I can help people realize and feel that they can be comfortable, they can be secure in this conversation, they can be warm and inviting. So that's a little bit of a long of an answer, but
I appreciate
that's how
it.
it works.
And you learned your love of conversation while you were in the Philippines. What was that like, and why were you in the Philippines?
Yeah, so the Philippines was a student missions experience through Southern. My story around that, it wasn't something that I thought I was going to go and do, because it wasn't until, I want to say, April, like end of March, early April, that I started to entertain the idea of being a student missionary through one of my friends at Southern. Shout out to Cassie Matcham, she's married now, I forget her married name. But she came to me and said, like, hey, Seth, you should consider going to be a student missionary in the Philippines. And I was like, I don't know. And the way that she said it the second time around, like encouraging me to do it, I felt really impressed. One way or the other, like God was calling me to maybe do something like that. There was just a strong conviction in my heart. And as I started to entertain it, long story short, God really opened up the opportunity for me to not just go, but to be able to have my student bill for the year completely paid in full, and the amount that I needed to raise to go, someone anonymously donated to. Wow. And there was just a number of things that really lined up, where whether you call it serendipity or God's divinity or just whatever, it really lined up. So I said, okay, I'm going to go, and I went, but it was interesting because the night before I actually went to go be a student missionary, I got drunk for the first time. Wow. I had been experimenting with quite a number of different avenues for life, if you will, during that period of time. And it was really centered around this idea or this conflict I was having internally about, well, who is Seth? Because when I was 16, I lost my father to suicide, which was really tragic, very impactful on my life from a number of different reasons. But going back to that who is question, it really brought to me the importance of having important male figures in my life. And I had some good ones and I had some not great ones. And I was trying to figure out, again, who is Seth and why do I want to do what I want to do? But I got to a point with going to the Philippines where all of my addictions, all of the just really messed up pieces of my character, the really messed up pieces of my childhood that I hadn't fully dealt with, all the way up to my father's death, I realized those things followed me halfway across the world. I realized, oh, I need to break this away somehow. And that's when I really started to have that conversation with God, like, how do I change? What does it look like for you to change me? And there's a lot of things we hear growing up, oh, you gotta work hard, but I didn't know, well, what level truly do I have to play in the transforming of my heart? And I realized that I was powerless to stop all these things, from the pornography addiction to constantly wanted to do video games. Just for me, sexual addiction was probably the biggest thing. But I got to the Philippines, and like I said, everything followed me there, and it came to a head really this one evening. There was a typhoon coming through. So for those who aren't familiar with typhoons, it's a hurricane, but on that side of the hemisphere, on that part of Asia. And it came through and knocked all the lights out for this compound that we were staying at. And not to be too graphic, but I had a sexual desire. I wanted to go watch porn somewhere. I had my phone, went to go kind of watch that and do my thing. And you know, again, not to be too explicit, but when I came to that place where I was had done the deed and was done, I was literally laying on my back in the middle of a typhoon, wind howling in this like disgusting area. And I was just really overcome with like how filthy I was. Felt spiritually, felt that physically. And I feel like God really talked to me in that moment, like, if you keep going down this road, this filth will take your life. It'll probably take the lives of those who you love. It's a pretty heavy thing. So I really committed in that moment, like, okay, like how much lower can I go truly? I felt like that was truly rock bottom. Yeah. And that started the journey of having that one-on-one conversation with God, which I think really in time informed how to have deeper conversations with people. So that was the keystone for having a desire and an ambition that was outside of just selfish gain, but more in the area of figuring out how I can live a life that truly would be Christ-centered, but I just wanted to be free. Like that was the main thing, free of all of these things that I feel like were following me for so long. Yeah. And so I started reading an accounting textbook. I started reading all the Ellen White material I could have, and I wasn't a particularly good student. In fact, I was a terrible student. I hated college. Almost quit several times if it wasn't for my amazing wife. She actually encouraged me to push through and to kind of finish that. And as I came back to the United States, had an entrepreneurship class, was doing the SALT program. I was just really ambitious, but at the time felt like a much better way, because I had a lot of misplaced energies in the past, a lot of areas I could go in, but I felt very focused on, I wanted to get my spiritual life on track, and I wanted to figure out how to do something in business. And I was on this really intense journey of like spiritual growth and like personal growth. But it was interesting kind of contrasting that point of the spiritual growth with the perspective I had then versus what I had now. I was very black and white because I had been muddling over here, and there's a gray area for everything, and I didn't really care. But I went into like this very, very conservative, pointing the finger at other people, you know, kind of thus saith the Lord, and burned a lot of bridges. And I think that there is a time in everyone's life when you go through that. I don't want to say that it was a bad time, because for me, it really was a learning experience, and I think that it could have helped some people, but I think it also burned some bridges. So it was like learning that Christ-like love just by experience, honestly, more than just, oh, this is what it says, this is what I'm going to do, that's it. It's very much a Saul mentality, like, oh, they're good, great. If you're not, kill them. Like that's kind of the mentality I had. Yeah. So yeah, that was the beginning of that, starting to really have that conversation with God, and that I think enabled me to be able to be interested truly in having curiosity for the person I'm sitting across from.
Gotcha.
How you feeling?
Good. A little bit more tired.
All right. So your heart rate is currently at 177. Nice. You have burned 167 calories already.
Nice.
So, well, you do pretty good.
I'm seeing a lot of hints of the story of Jonah in your experience, whether you're trying to run away from something or where God finds you in the place where you're running away and calls you out, and the typhoon and the water and everything like with that. How did that boil over into your love of running and doing triathlons?
Yeah, so when I came back, alongside of doing the SALT program and doing the hammock business, I met who was to be my wife. Okay. And I wanted to do some kind of fitness thing, because before I went to the Philippines, I was doing the gymnastics program, and I had some love for athletics. And we went, the year before I went over to the Philippines, we went and helped out with the Cahata Springs Triathlon. And I saw these guys coming through that looked like superheroes, because they were in like these skin-tight suits and these super crazy looking bikes. And then they were running, and I don't know, I was fascinated by it. I thought it was so cool. They were like modern day superheroes in my eyes. Yeah. So I had that in my mind. As I came back, I met Ashley, and Ashley showed interest in doing a triathlon. Okay. And I, conniving a little bit, but trying to figure out how we could spend more time together, asked her to be my co-leader for a life group. Okay. And then she showed interest in the triathlon. I was like, oh, I'll help you find a bike. I have a bike. We'll train for it. So that was like the beginnings of figuring out what it could be. And the second time I did that triathlon, which is just a couple of years later, I did it alongside one of her cousins. It's technically two cousins. And I thought I could beat them. Okay. So I went to the race, having trained minimally from what I knew how to do at the time. Yeah. They completely smoked me. And as that race ended, I was kind of, I don't know, had a little vengeance. It's like, I think I want to destroy them in the next one. So honestly, it was more of like a selfish gain in the beginning. I wanted to be the best. But as I started to go down that lifestyle, I started to realize that there's a lot of parallels between the business world, between the spiritual world, the physical, mental world, and like this thing of endurance sport. Yeah. One particular lesson I learned, so the very first time I went on this, what's called a group ride, and it was going to be like a 60-mile ride. It seemed huge for me. It was going to be like 3 to 4 hours long. I just gotten my bike, and I got invited on this ride, and as I went out, I just didn't have a whole lot of endurance at that point. So when we went out, I got dropped or left off the back because I couldn't keep up and draft with them very early on in the ride. And all I could think about was just looking down at my tires and pedaling and thinking, this is so hard. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But what was interesting is time went on. I looked back, maybe 6 months to a year, and I would go out and do the same distance, the same speed. But my perspective was a lot wider because I had been trained up to that point. So my endurance was better. I was doing the same, like I said, output for energy-wise, but my perspective being so wider, I could look ahead and see the beautiful trees or hear the beautiful birds singing. And I realized like, oh, that's such a parallel for life, in my spiritual life, in my physical life, mental life, whatever it is. You can add stressors over time and gain a resilience and endurance to that thing so that your perspective is wider when you come to that moment. Because a lot of us go through something really intense and we're so focused on like right here. Yeah. But the more we go through those things and are able to not just go through them, but then have a relaxed period where you can absorb that training, that's where it started to really open up my eyes like, oh, like this endurance thing is a lesson, it's a lifestyle that can teach me so much about all the different areas of life. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So as you're training, what does that training look like because you went to New Zealand. How was that? And B, what was the training going up to that race in New Zealand? Yeah,
so the race in New Zealand was the Ironman 70.3 World Championships. So there's the Ironman distance, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon run. This was half of all those distance. So 1.5 mile swim, 56 mile bike, and a half marathon, 13.1 mile run. Okay. So I qualified for that race, and it was really cool because my family were willing to go to New Zealand to make a vacation out of this if I qualified. So that gave me a little extra, I guess, cherry or carrot out there to kind of go for. But specifically with training for it, it's just building up to the distances and exceeding that a little bit in terms of the volume.
Dude, that's super cool. What is the hardest part of a race?
The hardest part of a race?
If you're doing like that triathlon, and you're looking at running, biking, swimming, what's the sequence of how those happen, and what do you think is the most difficult hurdle to get over?
So it's swimming, biking, and running. I think always the most difficult is going to be the running because you're pretty fatigued at that point. It's usually when the rubber hits the road and it's like time to not just perform physically, but you got to perform mentally. A lot of people talk about getting to a dark place or, you're getting into the pain cave mentally, and it comes down to at the end how much can your mind overcome the body, because you train up for so much. But to be honest, racing isn't the most healthy thing. Training can be very healthy in the longevity of it. But when you're racing, you are literally putting your body to the potential maximum that it can operate for a specific period of time. So the hard part comes whenever maybe you've messed up your nutrition and your fueling. One big area of focus in the sport these days for all endurance sports is how many grams per hour in carbohydrates can you train your stomach to be able to take? So when it comes to the race, the idea being the more carbohydrates you can take on board, the more your muscles can process, therefore you have more energy to potentially expend, and then you can go faster. So if you mess that up, you can start to get bonky is what it's called, where you start to feel really fatigued, you get kind of lightheaded. If your electrolytes get low, that can also happen. So I take 1.5 grams of salt per liter, which is 1,500 milligrams, which if you're thinking of like a ramen packet, that's like 2 or 3 of those, but think of an hour. So there's lots of salt that you expend. Most people do not know that you put out a tremendous amount of sodium. And if your electrolytes go down, it doesn't matter how much water or fluids you bring in, because water only absorbs in the body through crystalline structures, which is the electrolytes, the sodium. So it has to be absorbed into something, and if those get low, then you're in trouble. So that can be really tough. But I think the mental aspect is probably like the toughest part.
With your now wife, How has she supported you along this process of making sure you push yourself with the amount of sodium you get in and your diet and getting to that race point where you're then racing?
Yeah, so I think the biggest way that my wife has supported me has been in the respective time that I've taken to do these things. So my wife's pregnant right now. I don't know when this is airing, but hopefully it'll be public by then, but she's 19 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And, we've been married over 8 years now, and I started this triathlon journey really in like 2020. Okay. So the past 5 years, the majority of our marriage, it's gone through a lot of areas of just different types of seasons in terms of where my mindset was at and where hers was at. In the beginning, it was very selfish. I wanted to train a lot because I wanted to be the best. Mm-hmm. Then it was more of a lifestyle thing, and I started to realize like, okay, I spend a lot of money and time on this. Especially in my entrepreneurship days when I wasn't making as much money or nearly anything, and she was the main breadwinner. That created some friction there because she is very much one to tell me, oh no, you should totally do it. And it's not to her detriment, but it's something that I really kind of took advantage of, probably a little bit too much. It was very much a selfish thing. And now it's to the point where we've had those deep conversations about what Ironman is, and if there's a big training block coming up, we'll talk about it ahead of time. And I've come to a place now where I'm willing to truly, if there's a family thing happening or something else that is honestly more important, then I will cut my training short or I won't train that day. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's much better because mentally it helps me feel better about my family. It helps me relate to my wife better. So, to answer your question specifically, she's just been amazing at giving me, I guess, room to grow. So that's probably the greatest way that she's helped teach me just some amazing lessons. There's a lot of wisdom that she has in giving me space to grow and trust. And so it's really inspired me in a lot to start to give that back to her in a way that she truly deserves more of.
Well, what's the best advice you received, whether through your podcast or whether through one of your mentors, of getting to that place where you are healthy mentally, spiritually, and physically? At
the end of the day, what you believe about yourself and others translates, I think, to greater physical potential or physiological potential than doing the actual training. There's this interesting line of trying to figure out what is prideful in terms of like self-love and what is actually healthy, because Jesus says like love your neighbor as yourself. Well, what does that really mean to like love ourselves? I don't think it's what the popular world kind of says, like whatever you want, go get it. But there is a level of love that we have to have for ourselves and really seeing value in who we are as an individual, because if Christ would come to earth and die for just one of us, then like that's a tremendous amount that we have to truly value. It's just like when we ask for forgiveness, I think a lot of us, at least I really struggled with this, was this concept of like asking for forgiveness, but I feel like I kept asking over and over. And really what I'm saying to God is like, oh, I don't believe that I'm that valuable, or I don't believe that you'll forgive me, because we want to feel something, but really it's a belief. Like what we need to have is that belief that he says who he says he is, he will forgive us. He did die for just us if it was just that one person. So, to kind of go back to what you were saying, I think it really comes down to like to find that wellness, like you have to really understand who you are, why you are who you are, and what value God has put on you. And then if you can truly understand that and you feel that love well within you, then your cup can be overfilled, and then you can have that wellness kind of flow over to the other people in your life.
Yeah.
All right, you got 10 seconds.
Hard.
Keep going. All right, you're good. How do you feel?
Exhausted.
How do you think you did?
Pretty good, but I do know running is a better activity. You can burn more calories, and it's better for your cardio to run. I feel like I'll come in a little bit behind, but not too far.
Okay.
I'll be really, really, really close.
Hello guys, welcome back. Guys, what do you think? How do you think you did, first of all?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
How do you think you did?
Pretty good. Running's a better sport, but I think I came really close.
All right, you ready to hear the final numbers?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, Ted, you hit 363 calories.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Sophia, you hit 401 calories.
Nice.
I think y'all did very good. I think it was very close. But Sophia is our winner. Woo!
We just finished a competition with two competitors. One is a boy, one is a girl.
Cool.
The boy was cycling and the girl was running.
Okay.
So we have both of their average heart rates and their time and their calories burned. Can you distinguish between the two and tell us what makes you think one is cycling and one is running and stuff like that?
So I'd say just based on looking at first outright, one of them has an average heart rate, heart rate average of 163 and 148. So just on that alone, I would say that probably the female was the one with a little bit higher. The max heart rate, 194, probably female. Average for the guy, 188. It's not always the case, but generally women have a higher threshold for their max heart rate themselves. But also at the same time, I'd say that probably the one with the less high of a heart rate was probably also on the bike, because it's harder to get your heart rate up just because running is such a physical, demanding thing. There's a lot of stomping and your whole, literally inside your body, you're moving around, you're trying to get used to that, the body's trying to isolate how it can help you breathe while also activating the muscles, and then the bike, it's just kind of spinning the legs.
Okay.
So that's my initial thoughts.
Sweet. Yeah, you are right. You are right. Well, we want to say thank you for your time. We have this Ignite shirt for you.
Thank you very much.
You could whether use that for training or just wear it around the house.
Cool.
But thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. What an amazing reminder that wellness isn't just about taking care of your body, but also letting Jesus transform your whole life.
If you're ready to explore what that kind of transformation could look like in your own journey, check out www.hope.study. You'll find free Bible studies, videos, and reflections that help you grow closer to Christ and understand your identity in Him.
And for athletes or creatives who want to connect faith with what they love, like me, you can also find resources from the Christian Athlete website. Links will be below in the description.
Take the next step by diving into a Hope study this week and start discovering who you are in Christ.
Leave a comment below of what you would like to see next. And be sure to follow us for more updates.
I'm Reagan.
And I'm Preston.
Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you next time on Ignite.